And that's what I love about the 300 Magnums. They're a Western cartridge. I can be hunting the pole thickets and come to the edge of a pole thicket and look out over a canyon and have 400 and 500 yard shots right in front of me. So you want a cartridge that hits hard up close, but you can still reach out there 400 and 500 yards with. That's the kind of the epitome of a Western big game cartridge. Hi folks, Tim Sundles here, and my beautiful wife Kim is filming on her iPhone. Today, we're gonna be talking about a cartridge that's near and dear to my heart. It's a true Western, long range, close range elk cartridge. And you know, while you're out elk hunting, you can kill anything else you see with it. It's great for elk and moose. And that's the various 300 Magnums. I've got 4 different ones represented here. And so let's, for the sake of discussion, say that each one of these is loaded with a 180 grain bullet. I'll give you the max velocities out of, say, 24-inch barrels. And when I say max velocities, you can always milk more out of them, but you're going to loosen your primer pockets. You're not going to be able to reload your brass many times. So I'll show you basically what a max load out of 24-inch barrels should be, or in the ballpark. This is a 300 Weatherby, and I love the 300 Weatherby. 180 grain bullets at 3,250 feet a second. This is the 300 Win Mag, my most used 300. 180 grain bullets at 3,100 feet per second. 300 H&H Mag, 180 grain bullets at 2,950. And 300 Winchester Short Mag, which I also use quite a bit, 180 grain bullets at 2,950. And that's a rough ballpark of the velocity ranges that we're talking about. What I love about the 300 mags is being nearly a 31 caliber. I mean, they're .308 inch, so almost a 31 caliber. They have enough bore diameter. If you run them fast, they do a lot of damage. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. I was, oh gosh, it's probably been 15 years. I was just coming back from that ram hunt right there. And I was in Whitehorse, Yukon, sitting with all of Jim Shockey's guides. I think he had 6 of his guides there, and you know, they were taking other hunters and stuff. I only had one guide on my hunt, and we were discussing bore diameter and killing power, and every one of those guides guided in Shockey's bear concession, which is very low, what are they, Queen Charlotte Islands, south end of British Columbia. And Shockey has a lot of big black bears there. I mean, it's just really common to shoot 500-pound black bears. And, you know, once in a while, they'll crank out a 600-pounder. But, you know, a decent black bear there is 400 pounds. Well, around here, that's a very, very good black bear because we have such hard winters here. They have to hibernate longer. They don't get the salmon runs like those you know, southwest British Columbia bears get. Anyway, we're sitting there talking, and I posed the question, and it was a group discussion. I said, would you rather have your hunters show up with anything 308, including a 308 Winchester, which doesn't move all that fast, versus a 7mm Remington mag? And every one of them, without hesitation, said, no. More bears get wounded with the 7mm Remington mag than with anything 308. We would rather have guys show up with a 308 Winchester or a 30-06 as opposed to a 7mm Remington mag. And they just liked how the bigger bullet diameter killed better. And I mean, I have to agree. That's why when we did the 7mm Remington Mag video a month or so ago, 2 months ago, I said it's a decent elk cartridge. I said it's a good elk cartridge. It's not great, and it's not the best. When you get into the 30 caliber Magnums, you start getting up around the very best for elk. You know, and not all elk are the same. And for those of you that haven't hunted a lot of elk, but you went out once or twice and killed a young bull or a cow, let me explain. Elk, when they hit 8 to 12 years old in there, those big old bulls, not only are their bones twice as thick as your typical young 5x5 raghorn bull, but they're twice as dense. Their skin can be 3 times thicker, and their muscle is not only much larger, but it's much denser. And those big old Rocky Mountain bulls that have survived all those winters and all those packs of wolves and all those hunters that have been after them for all those years, they are hard to kill. So I don't want to get comments back with people going, well, I shot me a 5x5 with my 243. It died just fine. Well, they will. It's all about bullet placement. But I'm telling you, the bigger, older bulls, the kind most people never see in a lifetime because they don't hunt the right locations to get to those bulls, those guys are hard to kill. And the 300 Magnums or the 308 caliber Magnums is where really good elk cartridges start. I'll maintain they get better with the 338 and the 340 Weatherby, but they really start at the 300 Magnums.
Funny story about Sean and hunters, how Sean was walking and those two guys came up and tell that story because it's a funny story. About
I don't know the story.
Sean was in a bunch of elk and he was thinking
just last week.
And then differences in hunters that hunters.
Well, okay, yeah, I will explain that. Generally, the further back you get, the better if you're heading into good elk habitat. And I've got a friend named Sean that's a young guy. He's in his early 30s. And I've been taking him elk hunting this fall. And he hiked 3 miles back, and there was some fresh snow on the ground. He could hear all the elk bugling, and the cows were cow calling, and he knew and the thermals were right. We know how to hunt this area, which is why I showed it to Sean, to show him how to hunt it, because someday I'll be too old. And he just really is a guy that nothing is wasted on. And I like teaching those kinds of people my favorite spots and how to hunt them. So Sean's approaching with the thermals in his favor in the dark, and he can hear the elk all above him ahead on the top of this set of switchbacks. So he just stops. He's going to wait until he's got shooting light. And usually late in the elk season, like it was last week, there's no people going in there. Everybody's burned out on elk hunting. Everybody's given up. And Sean is standing there waiting for it to get light enough to shoot, because he knows as he creeps forward, he's likely going to get seen, or, probably not smelled, but probably seen. And when that happens, you have to be ready to shoot really quick. And so he's just waiting for it to get light enough, because he knew there was lots of bulls there. While he's waiting, he sees a couple of flashlights coming. And here comes 2 guys, and they know they're right behind somebody because they can see his boot tracks in the snow. It just snowed that night, so there was fresh snow. Sean was the only person up there, and they're following him. Sean just moves out of their way, and they go huffing and puffing by, breathing hard, stepping hard, making noise. And Sean said, I just figured, well, okay, it's a lost morning elk hunting. And he said those guys, before they ever got to the top of the switchbacks where they could see the elk were all running. Sean said it sounded like about 100 head of elk running. And of course, those guys never saw them. They spooked them. And so there's a lot of finesse that goes into hunting certain species. And elk are one of those species They're very sensitive to their nose and their ears. And on top of that, unlike a species like moose that has real average eyesight, elk have dynamite eyesight too. So they're tough to hunt, especially if they've been hunted by humans. They get really tough to hunt. So I think the Idaho state average is 10% of people buying elk tags end up killing elk. That's been the average in Idaho for a long time. Other states are lower. I don't know if any are higher. Colorado might be a little higher. And of course, that's average statewide. So I can take a 300 Win Mag, and it has the muscle, or a 300 Weatherby. It has the muscle that at 500 yards with that 31 caliber bullet, I'm gonna kill elk. As long as I put the bullet in anywhere near the right spot. You know, and as your cartridges get bigger and more powerful, the kill zone on an animal gets larger because you've got a little more leeway here and there where to put that bullet. And that's what I love about the 300 Magnums. They're a Western cartridge. I can be hunting the pole thickets and come to the edge of a pole thicket and look out over a canyon and have 400 and 500 yard shots right in front of me. So you want a cartridge that hits hard up close, but you can still reach out there 400 and 500 yards with. That's the kind of the epitome of a Western big game cartridge. You know, hits hard up close, hits hard far out, because you're going to get both those opportunities hunting the same terrain all the time. And heaven forbid you get out in the open sage, you know, I mean, where you can see the elk 1,500 yards away. I mean, you know, that's all completely different type of hunting, but you'll hope you have a 300 mag when you do that type of hunting. Okay. I'm old, so I have some old rifles. This is a factory Winchester. They called it a mountain rifle. In 300 Weatherby, it's just a 700 action, a Remington 700 action, chambered in 300 Weatherby. And they weren't yet making stainless steel barrels. This barrel is actually hard chromed, and this is an early Macmillan stock. And you know, it's a nice shooting rifle. I've used it off and on over the years. I happen to be a fan of many of the Weatherby cartridges, and the 300 Weatherby is no exception. And here's a 300 Win Mag. This one started life as one of the old Belgian-made Brownings, and I shot the barrel out. And so had it rebarreled in 300 Win Mag, which is what it was originally barreled for, and put a Lone Wolf stock on it back in the day. And I didn't do it. I had a custom gun builder do the work. And the rifle shoots so good, and it's light. That's a pretty thin barrel. It's only a 22-inch barrel. And this one is sighted in with 150 grain triple shocks that I'm running at 3,350 feet a second. And I can run them all the way up to 3,450 in this short barrel if I want to. I keep them at 3,350 feet a second so that I can use my brass 5 or 6 times before the primer pockets loosen up. Really a nice, handy little rifle. Doesn't weigh much, and it's you know, it's the hammer of Thor at almost 3,400 feet a second with 150 grain triple shocks. And I learned long ago that the triple shock, because of its design, penetrates deep for its weight. So I can hunt elk with 150 grain bullets if they're triple shocks, whereas let's say if they were Nosler partitions or if they were Swift A-frames, I would probably want a 180 grain bullet. This 300 mag is very little used. Do you guys remember when Best of the West had their television program and they had their Huskamoscopes? And it's actually a nice sighting system. They made the rifle with a jewel trigger. I don't know what kind of barrel they're using. It's their action, which, ooh, I don't know what kind of action that is. Anyway, nice rifle. I haven't used it much, and I had to fight those guys to get a shortish, I think this is 23-inch barrel. No, it's got to have a 26-inch barrel. No, it doesn't. Anyway, getting things done the way you want them and surviving all the bullshit you'll hear in the process can be real tough sometimes. I wanted 23 or 24, I don't remember. That looks like it's close to 24. And they were like, oh no, you'll lose 300 feet a second total. I'm like, guys, don't bullshit me. I shoot for a living. Don't give me that crap. I've been shooting a 300 Win Mag since I was 16. I had a Browning BAR when I was 16, and I had a Weatherby Vanguard when I was 16. And I loaded my own ammo for them and used them a bunch. So anyway, yeah, I fight the bullshit fight all the time, guys. I mean, being in this industry and being a manufacturer in this industry and knowing the things I know, I have to listen to horse crap often. But this is a nice rifle. You know, they make them with the flat forearm for bench rest shooting. And, you know, they put a palm swell in it, and, you know, their style of stock is all right. I don't have any real problems with it. And actually, if I wanted to upgrade the optics or even use this Huskamaw, frankly, would be an excellent sniping rifle. It's heavy enough to snipe with. This is probably my most used 300 Win Mag. I've had it in Alaska many, many times. Carried it, abused it, neglected it, just used the living daylights out of it. I hate to think how many animals I might have culled in Africa on our game reserve with this rifle, but it's a lot, because every time I would go, I would take whatever the law allowed. At least 100 rounds of ammo, because I had to take some 416 and other types of ammo too, but at least 100 rounds of ammo, and I'd shoot it up. I mean, and this action is a Montana rifle company. I think they called it their 1999 action. They're actually good actions. They were rough. They needed smoothing, but they're a good controlled round feed action. I had no issues with them. Some people did. I have quite a few rifles built on them. And this is not a heavy rifle, but it's not a light rifle. I want to say scoped up, it's just like an ounce over 8 pounds. So it qualifies as a mountain rifle. And it's been used a ton. I like when I use a rifle a lot and it becomes an extension of my body. And I've used this one that much in Africa. And then my only 300 short mag. This one is a summertime rifle I carry around. It's built on a Kimber 8400 action. And I just carry it all over in the summers. If I want a long range rifle that still has good bear killing capability, because we have grizzlies around here, this one just gets the nod all the time, and it's accurate, and it's probably killed more coyotes than anything, because it's always with me in the summers. Especially if I'm like in an ATV, I'm out driving around, I like to take this rifle. I'm trying to think how many elk. I've shot a few elk with it. I had a buddy a few years ago that killed an elk with it. He just grabbed it and shot an elk out in the sagebrush. We came around a corner and there was a herd of elk. We didn't even know they were there. He just grabbed his rifle and killed his elk. But I think I've killed a couple. I'm pretty sure I've killed a couple with it. Probably more like 4 or 5. Nice little rifle. That's a lone wolf stock on there, and it's just built to minimalist specs. I mean, that little forearm is almost nothing, really tiny, really a small little stock. And, you know, when it's, and you can see, you know, there's ammo in the magazine, and when there's no ammo in it or on it, this is about a 7.5 pound rifle. And, you know, I keep, you know, as you can see, these are all loopholes except for this one Huskamaw. And I think this is a 4.5 to 14, 4.5 to 14, 4.5 to 14. And that's probably an old 4.5 to 14. That's probably a 30-plus-year-old scope. And that Huskamaw, I think, is a 4 to 16. You know, and for Western rifles where you're going to be shooting far often, I like that 14 power. I don't have to have it. I can live with a 10 power. But I tend to go with the 4.5 to 14 loopholes with the Boone and Crockett reticle in them. That's a nice sighting system that's very fast, very simple. You know, when you look at your reticle and it's not so busy that you can't tell what's going on in your scope. It's very simple with different hash marks to use for ranging. And it's a favorite of mine. So these are my 300 mags. These are the ones that I've used for a long, long time. They're not the only ones I have had. I've had several over the years. I think 300 Winchester, I believe I've shot the barrel all the way out of 2 of them. And 300 Weatherby I shot the barrel out of. And then, you know, a bunch of others that I've shot the barrel out of because I shoot so much. And I don't shoot as much today. I'm too damn busy. I need to be retired and be outside shooting and hiking and fishing and doing stuff all the time. Folks, I hope this is in some way helpful. And you can see why, for me, a true Western guy, the 300, you know, the 30 caliber Magnums are true Western big game cartridges. And I mean, I can't think of a better mountain goat cartridge either. You know, mountain goats are tough. You know, my mountain goats have been killed with 338s, but that's because I was in grizzly country, and that's because I shoot a 338 a lot. My last mountain goat was a 440-yard shot in a strong crosswind, and I had to aim. If this is the goat, this is his front shoulders, this is his rear end, I had to aim out here so the left to right wind would push the bullet into his lungs. I mean, I had to aim 3-4 feet out in front of where I wanted the bullet to hit at 440 yards. And, you know, I'm just used to doing that kind of stuff. I've been doing it all my life. So it's not, to me, it's not hard to figure out. I don't carry wind gauges around, and I don't have a freaking program on my device where I can, you know, no, thank you. To me, that is not hunting. You might as well just take your laptop up there and hike around and use your laptop. I mean, and while you're at it, your texting device, and while you're at it, your satellite phone. No. That is not what I go into the wild for. Folks?
Okay, one of the questions we forgot yesterday, somebody asked, as far as the grizzly versus the dogman, who would win?
If an interior 600-pound grizzly, fully mature boar, was to tie it on with a fully mature 450-pound dogman, the dogman has hands. The bear has paws. The bear is likely more powerful. The dogman is likely more, he's likely more, limber, quick, agile. Agile is the word I'm looking for.
And he can teleport probably, so who knows about that.
It would be a fight to behold. But if the bear actually got a hold of him, the bear's gonna win. But boy, that would be a fight. Anyway, folks, enough of that stuff. God bless, and Kim and I will see you on the next video.